Hello, everyone. Welcome to the FASEB webinar on the Excellence in Science Awards, Opportunities and Eligibility for 2021. We've still got people logging on, so we will wait a few more minutes before we officially start.
I wonder if it's this.
Good morning, everyone. If you're joining us for the FASEB webinar on the Excellence in Science Awards, we're just giving everyone time to log on. Hopefully you see our screen that has the basic logistics and information for GoToWebinar for you to test sound, and we'll get started shortly. I realized what was going on. Oh no. Oh no. What did I do? I'm sorry. morning, everyone. We're just giving the last few minutes for everyone to join the Excellence in Science Award lecture webinar, or Science Award nomination process webinar. We will get the webinar started in about a minute or two. You can always tell what time it is based on everyone logging in. So Marianne, I will wait another minute to get started. Good morning, everyone. My name is Yvette Seeger. I'm the Director of Science Policy here at the Federation of American Societies for Experimental Biology, or FASEB, and I am delighted to welcome you to today's webinar on FASEB's Excellence in Science Award, Opportunities and Eligibility for 2021. Hopefully you can all see our screen and hear us, but if you have any issues, this slide shows you some information to connect your sound with your video, or if you have any questions, there's the helpline for GoToMeeting. All right. So for today's webinar, we have a few topics that we're going to cover. Those of you who are new to FASEB and its Excellence in Science Award program, we will give a brief overview of that. We'll talk about the 3 award opportunities, give you the details about the prizes for the recipients of the awards, and then for the information that a lot of you are probably seeking, we'll go into a discussion of the nomination requirements, the process for submitting a nomination, and then give you an idea of the timeline once you've submitted a nomination. And our goal is to leave plenty of time at the end of the webinar to answer any questions that you might have. As a liaison for the award, I certainly get a lot of questions this time of year, so we wanted to have this webinar as an opportunity for you to ask your questions and get answers in a rapid fashion. Speaking of asking a question, you'll see this toolbox on the side of your webinar screen where you can ask a question. It will not be displayed for everyone. The questions will come to us here at FASEB headquarters. So you type your question and we will process the questions as they come in. And just heads up that we try to bin some of the questions. So a good question is usually asked by multiple people. So hopefully we will address all of your questions through that format. So you can submit questions at any time during the webinar as we're speaking, and we'll process questions at the end of the webinar. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and we'll get started with today's webinar, FASEB's Excellence in Science Award, Opportunities and Eligibility for 2021. And again, my name is Yvette Seeger. I am the staff liaison for the Excellence in Science Award Committee, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Dr. Marianne Bjornstig, the chair of FASEB's Excellence in Science Award Committee. And go ahead, say good morning, Marianne.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. We're excited to convey the information about the award.
All right, hopefully she'll be able to join back in. A little background on FASEB. FASEB is composed of 28 member societies representing 130,000 scientists and engineers. And here you see all of the FASEB member society logos. And if you do a quick scan, you'll see that they cover a broad range of biological and biomedical science fields. And FASEB's mission is to advance health and well-being by promoting research and education in biology and biomedical sciences through collaboration and advocacy and service to our societies and their members. As I mentioned, all of this work is done through a committee, and here's a list of the FASEB Excellence in Science Award Committee. These are some of the hardest working people in the Federation in terms of volunteers. Their work takes the first half of the year, but they work very hard, and we really acknowledge all of their efforts in reviewing all of the nominations that are received. And each of them, even though I've not listed it next to their name, the majority of our societies are represented through membership on the committee. And so now I will pass it over to Marianne, and she will give a little bit of history on the Excellence in Science Award.
Yvette, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Shit.
We're having a little bit of technical difficulty. We'll be resetting the screen. We've had some trouble on audio on this side, so Marianne, hopefully we'll get this resolved shortly, and I apologize.
Can you hear me, Yvette? Yvette, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
All right, I think we've resolved. There we go.
There we go. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
Always an adventure. I apologize, Mary Ann. So we will go back. We couldn't hear you for a second. Would you like me to go back to slide 8?
No, it's fine. We can go ahead.
Okay. Let me. All right.
Okay, so have you gone through the new awardees for 2020? Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. No, we have not. Actually, did you go through the expansion?
Okay, so I can do that.
Okay,
So
great.
in 2020, FASEB was really generous in increasing the funding for this program and expanded to offer 2 new opportunities. One was for mid-career investigators and another for early career investigators. Again, all of these are intended to recognize the contributions of women scientists at all career stages. And these 2 additional opportunities supplemented the original Excellence in Science Award, which was intended to recognize lifetime achievements. So we now have 3 awards instead of 1, and we're thrilled to reveal the 2020 awardees. We had a great slate of applicants, really amazing women and amazing accomplishments, and we're thrilled with our 3 awardees for 2020, Bridget Logan, Aviv Regev, and Karen Schindler, really exceptional female scientists, and we're excited about the potential for them to represent their work at FASEB associated meetings. Bridget will present at the Society for Developmental Biology, Aviv will present at the American Society for Human Genetics, and Karen will present at the Society for the Study of Reproductive Annual Meeting. So we'll be providing more information about their lectures and more about their personal and professional journeys in the FASEB Washington Update newsletter. They're really amazing, and I hope you'll pay attention to their successes. So before we get into the details of the nomination process, I'd like to just go through some of the details of the prizes because they actually come with some really exciting perks. So we've already discussed the existing Excellence in Science Award, and that's now been rebranded as Lifetime Achievement Award. As I said earlier, it's intended to recognize the contributions of established investigators. The recipients of this award will receive $10,000 in an unrestricted research grant and have the opportunity to present a lecture during a FASEB member society meeting of her choice. Expenses associated with this lecture, the typical registration, travel, limited lodging, are also covered, and they get a plaque. So the new Excellence in Science Mid-Career Investigator Award, which is the next slide, right, is really targeted to women scientists within the first 7 to 15 years of their first independent faculty position or research scientist position. So the recipient of this award will receive a $5,000 unrestricted research grant and also present a special lecture during the FASEB meeting society of her choice, along with the same reimbursement of meeting expenses as listed here. And then the next award, the new Excellence in Science Early Career Investigator Award, is for women scientists within 7 years of their first independent faculty and or research scientist position. And again, this recipient will also receive a $5,000 unrestricted research grant, the award lecture at the meeting of her choice, and also a reimbursement of meeting expenses. So we're really excited about the opportunity to really cover the whole spectrum of women's activities in science. So now we can go on and talk about nomination requirements. Yvette?
Yes, and I will do the basic eligibility. So first and foremost, the nominee must be a woman. This is a frequently asked question. There is no change in the guidelines. This award is explicitly for women. The nominee must be a current member of a current FASEB full member societies. So recently FASEB expanded its membership structure. The majority of our member societies are full member societies, but there are some that are associate members. So only those societies who are full member societies are eligible, and you have to be a current member of a full member society to be eligible for an Excellence in Science Award, both as a nominator and a nominee. The nominator must be a current member of a current FASEB full member society. However, they don't have to be members of the same FASEB society. This is another common question. Do we have to be members of the same society? No. There are 27 full FASEB member societies, and as long as each individual, the nominator and the nominee, is a member of one of those, you're good to go. Nominations must be submitted annually using the appropriate Excellence in Science Award nomination form. We'll get a little bit more into this later in the webinar. We've changed the interface slightly, but since there are slightly different parameters for each of the 3 awards, you submit using a form specific for the award that you're trying to nominate the individual for. At this time, you have to continue submitting. Even if you've submitted a nomination last year, you need to submit a new nomination to be considered for the 2020 award cycle. So Marianne, I'll pass it over to you to talk about the review criteria, and we have the lifetime achievement criteria up.
Great, thank you. So for the Lifetime Achievement Award, this really is intended to acknowledge accomplishments across the entire spectrum of scientific endeavor. And that would include, in terms of scientific achievements, as you can see, landmark discoveries, high impact publications, scientific leadership, but also high impact science. Really having a long-lasting and profound impact on where science has gone during the tenure of this individual's activities. This also is intended to acknowledge excellence in training of students and postdoctoral fellows, the impacts on their careers, and a robust experience in teaching lectures and so on. There's also the importance of contributions to the broader scientific community, and some of this could be represented by leadership and professional organizations, such as the member societies of FASEB. Also, in service and leadership at their own universities, part of public outreach or any other activities or services to the broader scientific community. So that represents the Lifetime Achievement Awards. If we move on to the next slide, the MidCareer Investigator. Again, evidence of scientific achievements, and this is really intended to recognize achievements of someone who's still in the development phase of their career. So there should be examples of landmark discoveries, high impact science, leadership, mentoring of graduate students, and developing a cohort of former mentees who have gone off to do various aspects of science, whether that's in policy or in the lab or all the other careers that are available for scientific impact, as well as community outreach. And clearly the accomplishments here are not going to be necessarily at the level of a lifetime career achievement award, but there should be robust demonstration of activities and impact at all of these different levels. So if we move on to early career. So this is really for someone who's at the beginning, first 7 years of their independent position. So there should be examples of how their science is starting to have impact in terms of the fields that they're in. So scientific achievements, it can be the development or implementation of unique programming or tools for research and or education, as well as leadership in interdisciplinary research efforts and or education. So the intent here is really to acknowledge someone who's emerging as a leader in a field and really is beginning to have broader scope across the community. I would also say, and just to repeat what Yvette mentioned before, that if you're nominating somebody and you've nominated them before, it's critically important that you go and get updated letters from those who are supporting the nomination, so that we have a sense of that this is something that represents current activities across the board. Yvette?
Thank you for pointing that out, Marianne. Especially, I think we'll see it to be more important as we see repeat nominations of individuals who are still eligible for the Early Career and the Mid-Career Awards. So thank you for flagging that.
And we would love to see
oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, we would love to see those nominations coming back again, because there were some exceptional candidates.
Yeah, it's not an easy job. I don't envy the committee members. So moving on into the nuts and bolts of submitting a nomination. First, I'll walk through the specific materials for each award, starting with the Lifetime Achievement. And I will say every year the committee has a debrief after each award cycle and review period. I catch them while they're weak after they've reviewed a ton of nominations, great nominations, and we discuss the volume of materials that we require, and the committee continues to agree that these are the materials that they need to see to really get this full picture of the scientist that's been nominated. So we appreciate that it's a lot of information to collect, but I can also reassure you that committee members spend a lot of time reviewing the materials, and it's critical that you fulfill each of the different components of the nomination package. So for the nomination materials for the Lifetime Achievement Award, the first item is a nomination letter. So this is the individual who is bundling the package, submitting all the materials. They write a separate nomination letter. This is kind of the cover letter for the whole nomination package. In addition, you will submit the nominee's complete curriculum vitae, 5 nominee reprints, and like NIH bio sketches, this is where you select those papers that are most representative of your work. Again, looking back at the guidelines for the award. And then there are 6 separate letters that need to be submitted. 3 of them need to be letters of support from the nominee's peers, illustrating impact on the field. And then 3 of the letters are letters of recommendations from trainees, illustrating mentorship and impact on careers by the nominee on their individual careers as they move forward. So the Lifetime Achievement Award nomination package requires 6 total letters. For the Mid-Career Award, you have a lot of similarity. There's a nomination letter, the complete curriculum vitae, 5 reprints, but recognizing that these are mid-career researchers, we change the requirement for the letters of support to be broader and limit them to 3. So 3 letters of support illustrating the nominee's impact on research and mentoring and career development. So another common question that I get is, you know, do these all need to be collaborators, or can these be trainees? We afford the flexibility in the Mid-Career Award for the nominator to choose those individuals that could write the letter that's most representative of what you're trying to highlight in the nominee's career. The nomination materials for the Early Career Award, again, very similar to the Mid-Career Award nomination letter, the nominee's complete curriculum vitae, 5 reprints, and 3 letters of support illustrating the nominee's impact on research and/or training and education in biological and biomedical science. So for the Lifetime Achievement Award, there are 6 supplementary letters, and then for the Mid-Career and Early Career Award, there are 3. Going into a little bit of a deeper dive in the nomination materials, and again, we've tried to bin all of the questions that we get asked into this webinar. So the nomination letter, again, is a separate letter describing in detail the nominee's contributions to the field, and that recognizing the nominee's outstanding achievement in science. The letter should also discuss evidence of leadership, mentorship, national recognitions, honors and awards, and a brief synopsis of the selected bibliography. So this again is a cover letter, provides the overview of the nominee so that we know what we're looking at with the rest of the nomination materials. The second item is the nominee's complete curriculum vitae, documenting all publications, leadership roles, mentorship activities, teaching activities, honors and recognition, and grant awards. I do want to pause on that last item, the grant awards, particularly for the lifetime achievement. It is important, as I've heard in the review sessions, that this is not just active funding, that the reviewers really want to see a scope of all the funding throughout the investigator's career. And I would say that that is one thing that reviewers hone in on as they're looking at the CVs. So make sure that that CV is complete and up to date. Going through the rest of the nomination materials, the 5 nominee reprints, again, these are the articles that demonstrate the most significant contributions to the selected field. And then, as previously noted, the letters. So lifetime achievement nominations require 3 letters from peers and 3 letters from trainees, so a total of 6 letters. And again, these should be on letterhead and signed. And then mid-career and early career nominations require 3 letters total and can refer to research expertise as well as contributions to education and mentoring. Again, this reflects the flexibility given the stage of careers for the nominees for the early career and mid-career awards. Materials must be submitted using one of the Excellence in Science web forms. Again, we've updated this. If you've nominated in the past, we use the WUFU format. We are transitioning our materials to a new web form that's part of our volunteer portal. So I will make this slide deck available so that all the links are clicked through, but if you have difficulty finding the web forms, please do not hesitate to contact me. All materials must be submitted in a PDF format, and the number of requested materials is exact, and you'll see this when I show you screenshots of the submission platform. You might be able to get 12 letters of recommendation to go with your nomination package, but if it's a Lifetime Achievement Award, I can only accept a total of 6 letters. So you will not be able to submit extra materials, and in the same vein, you won't be able to submit any fewer than the requested documents. Materials submitted by email or other modes of document sharing will not be accepted. You know, I will work with nominees if you're having trouble uploading your documents in those instances, but do remember that we receive a lot of our nominations, not surprisingly, towards the end of the nomination period. So, you know, you might want to test the system early if you have any questions, similar to submitting a grant. Materials will not be accepted after the nomination deadline, and we recognized as we were uploading this webinar that March 1 is a Sunday, so we will update our materials and extend this deadline to be March 2nd, 11:59 p.m. Eastern. At that time, the form will shut down. And you won't be able to access it anymore. So the nomination deadline is at 11:59 p.m. on March 2nd, so that you have time to collect things on Monday. All materials must be submitted at the same time. It is not the situation where you can start a nomination form and then go back and say, I'm sorry, that's not the interface that we have. But it does allow you to collect everything and then upload it all at the same time, and then you're done with it. Again, online submission only through our volunteer portal, which is MemberClicks, and I've provided a screenshot here where you can see the different buttons for the separate awards, and when you click through, you'll go through the basic information for each award, and then you'll have a fill-in form. And If you're not a current FASEB volunteer, so that's typically if you're not currently serving on the FASEB board or serving on the Science Policy Committee, you will have to create an account. This is simple and free. If you're already a volunteer, you will just have to log in. Whoops, got a little excited with the mouse. So you'll just need to log in. But new users, you'll see at the bottom, enter your email address to set up your profile, and this will allow you to submit this year, and then you'll always have a volunteer profile on the FASEB volunteer portal for future submissions. So again, when you get to the form, the required information for the nominator, we'll need to know the name, title, institution, business email, business phone number, and FASEB society of which you're a member. We've updated this. It used to be a fill-in form for the last bullet. We've now made it so you can do multiple selection. So if your society is not listed, then you're not eligible to be a nominator. Same for the nominee. We need name, title, institution, email, phone number, and the FASEB member society. Basically the information so that we know how to contact you with follow-up once review is complete. And in the case that I get to relay good news that you're an awardee, we know how to contact you and your nominee. As I mentioned, documentation must be submitted in a PDF format. No web links, no Word files, everything must be in a PDF format. Also, something that I encountered last year, particularly with reprints, is make sure that the PDF files are unlocked. I had several instances where I had to get different copies of the PDF because they were restricted and I was unable to download them and share them with our review committee. Below I show the requested format for naming your documents. Nomination letter for Sally, version 1 is not easily recognizable on my side. So what I ask is that you use the nominee's last name. In my case, I'm using my last name, and then the name of the document. So my nomination letter would be Seeger nomination, Seeger CV, Seeger reprint 1, Seeger reprint 2. And that way it's actually easier for you to know what you have as you make a folder and then go to upload your files, but it also makes processing the documentation a lot easier on our end as well, and we can quickly check what you've submitted. So here I have a screenshot of our new interface, and if you submitted through our WUFU interface in the past, this looks pretty familiar. You'll see the information. We have a brief synopsis of what we're looking for, in this case, the nomination letter, and then you'll just click the button to upload the file. And you'll see that, again, this has an asterisk, which means that it's required information. Everything that has an upload file is required, as previously noted. And at the bottom of the form, you will click OK after you've uploaded everything. The nice thing about the system is if you're missing anything, the system won't let you proceed. It won't let you press the done button, and it will give you a lot of angry red text indicating what you're missing. So it gives you the opportunity. It will be frustrating if you think you have everything, but it is a good check because it won't allow you to submit an incomplete nomination. There is, and this isn't exactly how it will look because this is the old WUFU format, but you will get a confirmation page saying that you submitted your nomination, and you should get an email indicating that your materials were received. That is the only confirmation that you will receive. You know, I frequently have nominators or nominees email me to confirm whether or not their materials were received. I will gladly answer those emails, but I will not reach out to you independently beyond the checks that you'll receive through the system. So in terms of the timeline, again, as I mentioned, we'll update this deadline to be Monday, March 2nd as your deadline for submission. You get a whole extra 24 hours this year because of March 1 falling on a Sunday. So March 2nd is your deadline for submissions. My job after all the submissions come in is I work to separate our pools and send all the nominations to the Excellence in Science Committee for initial review. We do two-step review. The committee members are divided into initial triage group, and each member reviews about 10 to 12 applications per award category. So as we've been rolling out the new award program, the expanded award program, I've appreciated the committee's willingness to all participate across all 3 awards so that we can understand the pool as we continue to develop this program. So each committee member is reviewing 10 to 12 applications per award category, so 30 plus nominations per reviewer. We will have a preliminary review discussion in May. So this is where we triage the nominations, and that's usually a robust discussion. And we use that to find our top finalists that everyone will review. So, this is like when you go into study section, you have the top scoring grants that you'll discuss versus those that aren't discussed. So we use a preliminary review to figure out which nominations that will be discussed in the June review. And depending on the pool, committee members will review 8 to 10 finalists per award. And there's very robust discussion at both stages regarding the nominees, the pros and cons, and how they align with the parameters of the award. Marianne, did you have anything to add on this part of the timeline?
I would just say that to remind everybody that the committee members really represent the broad spectrum of science under the FASEB umbrella. So it really does end up being a really robust discussion from really diverse fields, and I think it's a really great process.
I have to say it's one of my favorite committees to be the liaison, because I get to sit back and hear about really great scientists. So after we go through the preliminary and the final review, I work in my role as liaison with the committee chair and to develop the recommendation letters of the recommended awardees for each of the awards to be considered by the FASEB board of directors, because the award has to be approved by the board. And the board will vote this year in early July on that recommendation. Once we have board approval, we start the outreach to the awardees, and we anticipate announcing the awardees in early August. We get really excited to announce the awardees, but we try to make a really concerted effort with each awardee's institution and their member society or multiple societies, so that we can really highlight the excellent achievements of these women. The actual conferral award, so the year is 2020, but now we're considering the awardees for 2021. That is because the award will be conferred during the annual meetings of the awardees member societies in 2021. So as you saw with this year's awardees, we have 2 awards that will be conferred in July and 1 that will be conferred in October. So now we'll move over to some frequently asked questions. And Marianne, I don't know if, do you want to roll through the ones that I've presented, or do you want me to see if we have any questions?
Why don't we start with the ones that are on your slides, but we can add in any questions that people have submitted to you.
Great.
So,
all right, so we have the first one. This is the big one.
Yeah, so I think that there's always been questions since these new awards. Is eligibility determined by the year of the nomination or the year of the award? And the eligibility is determined by the award year, which is 2021. So for mid-career and early career, the dates are given. So for early career, it would be appointed 2014 and onward, so up to 15 years after that. Mid-career would be appointment, 8 years after that, and then mid-career would be appointment in 2006 and onward. So it's the year of the award, not the year of the nomination. And you can also see that Yvette has put a note here that that nominators may indicate parental leave of absence, and that may have affected eligibility for up to 1 year in their nomination letter. So we are certainly very sensitive to parental leave as part of the career progression as well.
And one of the other questions that I get related to this is, again, it's the year that you were appointed. It's not a precise date. You know, I appreciate that everyone is very aware of the brackets, but we're looking for that early career, mid-career general bracket. So don't worry about a specific date. But I have gotten more questions about the leave of absence. And like our colleagues at NIH, you know, we're willing to consider that, and that should be part of our practice, especially given that this is an award for women. All right, so that's a big frequently asked question for us.
Right, and I think that I would also say that if there are other issues relating to family or health, call Yvette or email Yvette if you have a question about whether that would be taken into account in terms of timeline.
Yes, and if I don't know the answer, I go right to Mary Ann, and we're a good team.
Yeah, we are.
All right, the second FAQ.
Okay, so do all letters of support need to be from members of FASEB Society? And I think we've gone through that, but the answer is no. Only the nominator and the nominee must be members of a full FASEB member society. So don't worry about all the other letters, whether they have affiliations or not.
And I'm hoping it will be easier this year with the form having a list to select from for the FASEB member societies. My goal is to get as many nominations accepted into the pool as possible. So in the past, when I've seen a society that isn't a FASEB society, I've reached out to the nominator, and we've found we've gone back through the memberships, and we've been able to clarify FASEB membership. But again, if it's not listed on the form, it's not a FASEB member society that's eligible. All right,
I would also just add that thinking forward, if you know of some young women in science who you think will be eligible with time, this might be an opportunity to encourage them to join a FASEB society if they're not already.
Exactly, you know, join the family. We have great prizes. And so here is the next FAQ. I've talked about this repeatedly just because this is on my end of administration. Nothing stresses me out more than having to go back to a nominator or nominee and ask whether or not they're eligible because they've not listed a FASEB member society. So if you have any questions, the list is correct for the 2021 nomination period. You know, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out to me over email. You know, but hopefully this will clarify questions about who is a FASEB member society and who is not. All
That's
right.
great. So
the next one, I've already covered it too.
I think you've dealt with this already. Can someone submit additional documents to support a nomination? And the answer is no. So we're trying to make the playing field as level as possible. So I think that the web portal will now make it a lot easier for everybody to comply with the required and not over required information that should be part of the nomination package. We have had this in the past. Does a nominee get extra credit if multiple nominations are submitted on her behalf? And the answer is no. And we would ask that if you are aware of multiple nominations going in for a particular nominee, that you work with the other folks who are interested in nominating somebody up front. Otherwise, it's going to end up on our end, and Yvette has worked really hard to ensure that if there are multiple nominations, that her staff works really hard to try to condense everything into a single package, and that will not benefit the nominee at all, and it just creates extra work for everybody that's involved in the process.
And then we've discussed this one, but it always helps to say it again.
Yeah, so please, we had great applicants last year, and it's really tough to pick one winner of all the spectacular female scientists that were nominated. So we would encourage you, if you nominated someone last year, nominate them again, but please go back and make sure that all of the information is updated and reflects the current year, not last year's nomination. Thank you.
And on that point, I really appreciated that you highlighted updating the information. You know, it is noticed by the committee, the date of a letter that might be 4 or 5 years old. You know, hopefully with today's technology, you're able to get those updates. But, you know, we've got some eagle eyes on our committee, and they want to see that the nomination packages are being updated to reflect the current nomination.
And I would also
So
add that because the committee is really diverse in terms of their expertise and their society representation, that we have some turnover and there is some corporate memory, but just really think of this as making it clear to someone who does not know who the nominee is, even though that might be hard to imagine, that you need to provide as much information as possible to really make your points.
Yes, that's a great point. All right, so those were our frequently asked questions. Now we'll shift to regular Q&A. And just a reminder, if you want to ask a question, enter it into the question box, and we'll go and see if there are any questions that have come through. And Mary Ann, we've got several. Okay, so we can hear.
Good.
Okay, we have a lot of comments. All right. So if the nominator is currently retired, what should be entered for the institution on the nomination form? That's a great question. In terms of, and Mary Ann, I appreciate your perspective because we're working on this on the fly. We have had letters come from retired individuals, and it usually lists in parentheses emeritus next to their institution or their title that they're emeritus. The key is that the email address, the contact information, the email address, the phone number is where we can easily reach them. So an email address or a phone number for an office that's no longer functioning is not going to help us in the case of communicating the status of the final review and award. Marianne, does that seem fair?
Yeah, and I think that you can put the prior institution and then parenthetically either emeritus or retired, and they don't have to have a university email in order to be eligible. It can be a Gmail account or whatever, as long as we have the right contact.
And then I think we covered this. Do you grant a temporal extension for illness such as treatment for breast cancer given this population? And I think we have a lot of flexibility, and it's great to have the lead from NIH in terms of extending the early career status. We're following that model. So, you know, as long as the nominator writes something to the effect in the letter so that we understand where the time went is usually helpful, and it doesn't have to be a whole bunch of detail. And Marianne, I will pass to you.
Yeah, I agree. I think that you don't need to provide a lot of information, but if you're uncertain, because it's a lot of work to put these packets together, just shoot Yvette an email and we will get back to you with an answer in terms of eligibility. But we are really quite accommodating, I think, in terms of those types of issues.
We did have a comment clarifying for prior government employees, emeritus status requires 20 years of service. You know, again, as Marianne stated, if the investigator has retired, it can be emeritus or retired. You know, just an indicator that we don't go looking for your contact information at that institution. Especially if the email that you submitted is associated with the institution that individual no longer works for.
Right, and I think that the CV will reflect the lifetime in terms of employment and career and trajectory and all of that. So it'll be clear from the CV the timing of the transitions that were made. So that's not going to be a problem.
All right. We'll pause for just to see if there are any other questions. I think as we've worked together, Marianne and I, we've certainly collected a pretty robust list of FAQs. So hopefully, I'm hoping that the limited number of questions reflects that we're getting better at relaying some of the questions in this webinar. We're also hoping to develop this into a separate frequently asked questions document next to all the nomination materials. As previously noted, we're transitioning off our website into the volunteer portal for these materials. So, but at any point, you can feel free to email me and I will move this slide. Can you?
So Yvette, can I just add one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I just want to make it also clear that especially for the early career and mid-career, women do not have to have a tenure track or tenure earning position. It's just an independent position.
That's a great point. Yeah, we wanted to make sure that we had flexibility for a whole, especially for the early career investigator. And thank you for bringing that up, Marianne. To reflect those individuals who are doing outstanding things in the biological sciences, and they could be working in a staff scientist position, they could be working more in a teaching laboratory. We're excited to see the potential of what these amazing women are doing career-wise.
Right.
I was going to get to the slide that had my email address, but of course there it is. You know, if you have any additional questions, and I know probably a few of the participants on this webinar, I did direct them to it as they ask questions. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me. You know, I try to respond to all queries within 24 hours at most. Do recognize that my email gets a little busy as we get closer to the deadline, but you know, no need to panic about documentation. I recommend that you go check out the web form, make sure you're familiar. One strategy that I've found to be helpful when I upload documents to these sorts of nomination forms is I make a separate folder on my desktop with all the files named properly, and then I just quickly upload from there instead of trying to piecemeal it from various sources. I know that seems kind of silly to say, but anything that alleviates stress. I've spent a lot of time on the phone with nominators and nominees. Just I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to show your nominee in the best light with the best materials. So anything that I can do to help, please do not hesitate to contact me.
That's great.
Do we have any other questions that have come through?
Nope, we did have one comment thanking us for offering the award.
Well, I am always honored to be a part of this committee because, like I said, it's the hardest working committee. They take their jobs very seriously. It's always a delight to work with Mary Ann as chair. So, you know, we're
Well, the
we're
whole
a good
committee
team.
really, the whole committee is fabulous. So it's a great experience. So we're looking forward just getting the nominations.
And as Mary Ann mentioned at the beginning, if you go to the FASEB Excellence in Science page, or if you go to the FASEB Washington Update newsletter, and in the search type Excellence in Science, we've been doing with our 3 awardees special interviews, not necessarily focused on the science, but more about their career path. That are really great reads. We'll be publishing the 3rd one, hopefully later this month, on our EarlyCareer awardee, Karen Schindler. And it's more of a personal take on how they've focused on their research and how they balance lab and life outside of lab. So we're really excited about this award and highlighting it even more, because it is the oldest, longest running award for women in biology. We'll do one last pass for questions. Any final parting great thoughts, Mary Ann, before we adjourn?
No, but thank you all for participating in this. And we'll look forward to some great nominations coming in.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Mary Ann, for your service as chair.
No,
And with
thank you,
that, we'll go ahead and we will adjourn. We'll give you 6 minutes back on your day, but thank you all for attending the webinar. We will make a recording available probably within 48 to 72 hours. If you would like to have the slide deck, feel free to email me at yseger@faseb.org. And I would be happy to share them with you or answer any questions that you have. So thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you, Mary Ann, for taking time out of your day to talk about this wonderful program.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.